Hey everybody, Troy Manning, coming back to you today. um, Boy, I've been trying to make this video pretty much a couple times yesterday, one time this morning. Been up since 3:30 because this is one of those videos that I thought I gotta make. So if you get this, please send it to anybody you know at MIT or any of those big physics places, because this is the one that I think will get a little bit of traction somewhere or open up a lot of eyes, because uh, today we're going to do a real crash course on frequency. And I only know things in context of what I know, so we're going to talk about it in radio terms a lot of the time. Uh, Radio, or RF, radio frequency, right? These are just electromagnetic waves. So say we've got our center line here. Let's do this a little bit neater. How can I draw shapes? Lines. We're going to make one straight line, right? Let's see if we got any other shapes. No, never mind. Okay, so we got our line. Our frequency is going to be a signal that we send down this line. And normally they're, same shape and everything, but if you're like me and can't draw worth a crap, making drawings is is one of the funniest things you'll ever do on the internet, because wow, I can't. But anyway, say we take our frequency here, right? And from here to here, this distance for us to go for up to max, back to zero, because this is these nodes here, this is what they call them, where we cross that center line. This is where there is no amplitude or 0 volts. There's nothing pushing it, right? And then we have our antinodes, which are up here and down here. These are max voltage and min voltage, right? Minimum voltage. And anytime that we send this down a pipe, say like a transmission line or anything, we kind of trap it. We put it into a cage. So, and these are usually done at amplifiers too. Same thing, they're just resonant cavities, right? We resonate it, which means it's kind of like a pendulum, right? So we're swinging back and forth, one side to the other, right? Or even going full circle. Let's just do it the way I think about it. So we've got a full circle out here, right? And every time that this gets all the way around, it would correspond to one entire wavelength over here, right? So that way, when we start on this next wave, it hits exactly when that, call it our marker here, when that marker gets back to this one spot, say this is our reference point. By the time we get back to this spot, the next wave hits and it pushes it around again, right? So we're just basically making it so that when one wave leaves, the next wave comes right in behind it, and it's just a smooth transition, and we don't have like one wave leaving while half a wave's coming in, because things don't work efficiently when we do that. So anytime you have this inside a cage, you're going to produce harmonics. So whatever your frequency is, your F sub C, right? We will have our 1 F sub C, And then we're also going to produce 2 F sub C, 3 F sub C. These are frequency carrier, right? So our carrier frequency, whatever produced, say if we produce 100 megahertz signal, right, and we bounce it down the line, the way that this bounces back on itself and then bounces back on itself again, it's constantly moving, and at every half wavelength, we make a new frequency, which is twice what the original frequency is. It's kind of an oddball way of explaining it, and I'm sure there's a lot of physics guys that can explain it a lot better. It's just when you have something trapped, it's just like waves in a bathtub where they're bouncing back and forth from one side to the other constantly. And this sloshing around inside the bathtub makes a bunch of other waves and other ripples inside the bathtub because all of them are mixing, right? So we'll have a 200 megahertz signal that we produce unintentionally, and it's going to be a lot lower in amplitude than our carrier signal, right? In RF terms, when I put a transmitter on the air and say I have 13 dB of signal coming out of the transmitter, in order for us to stay legal with the FCC, any noise, any of these harmonics, 200, 300, 400, all of those have to be at an energy level that's minus 80 dB from the energy of our carrier. So if our F sub C is sitting at 13 dB, we have to be at least a neg 67 dB as far as the energy that we measure on each one of these unintended frequencies, right? So we have to do filtering, and we have to do a lot of a lot of other things to make sure that we're not putting out frequencies that aren't supposed to be there. So now that we've got that kind of taken care of, let's talk about how your radio works. All right, so we have a transmitter. It produces this carrier signal, whatever it is. Say it's 95.5 because that's one of the local stations. So these words over here, megahertz, that has to do with hertz, right? So if we have a 1 hertz signal, that would be one entire cycle per second, right? So we start here, we go up, we go down, we come back, and we end up at 0 again, right? And really, to tell you the truth, we're just making a big circle and coming back to right where we started. It's kind of hard to explain, but that's the way it is. So we produce our carrier waves here, and then we encode our audio on top of it, which we do it in what's called the exciter of the transmitter. So we put our audio on top, right? And we just kind of make it ride along this wave, this carrier wave, and whatever it is, whatever information, it can be audio. When you get up into Wi-Fi and stuff like that, it's ones and zeros, it's data. So we can encode anything we want on the carrier and send it out. So we send the signal out. It goes to your antenna on your car, right? Goes to your radio, and inside your radio, you have this little box. It's called a local oscillator. right? And all it does is it sees this signal coming in, your carrier signal, and then it produces the anti-signal to that. Why does it do that, you say? Well, when waves mix, if you can basically produce the same wave 100, oops, excuse my dyslexia again, 180 degrees out of phase, right? We can basically cancel that wave out. It'd be like two people pulling on the end of a rope. It'll just go away. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but basically, if we make this anti-wave, what we end up is a straight line, and remember, we have this audio information encoded on there, right? So once we cancel it out, all we're left with is the audio, and that's what your radio plays back to your ears as sound. And we do this in a whole lots of different ways, but in to go along a little bit with where I want to go with this, let's go to a different frequency. We'll go to AM, right? We go way down in the band because these guys are in the kilohertz range. I think it's like 500 kilohertz, somewhere in that neighborhood, to almost 1600 kilohertz. All right, this is our AM band for those following along at home, right? Let's go back up here to this 1 cycle per second, right? That would be 1 hertz. So if we're talking about hertz as in a frequency, say a 500 kilohertz signal, 500 kilohertz, right? That would be 500,000 hertz. So what we do is we make it go up, down, and back 500,000 times a second. And every time it's going, it's still got the audio riding along with it. So 500,000 times a second is what our carrier wave is. So talk about vibrating. Now we go back up here to the megahertz, right? Mega. 95.5, what we're doing is 95,500,500 hertz, right? So 95 million times a second, million. We're vibrating that energy back and forth. So we've got a frequency. So I'm trying to do a lot of educating in a very short amount of time, and I know it's going to be a little bit funny to follow along with. So please forgive me if you know what I'm talking about. I'm probably explaining it way different than you've ever heard it, and that's because I don't have a degree. I do not know formulas. I know a few of them because I have to deal with them on a regular basis, but I'm just like anybody else, right? I just stopped thinking that I couldn't figure something out. That was the only difference. All this stuff's relatable. But getting back to waves and anti-waves, right? We do the same thing in AM in order to protect other stations. So what we do is, say you're looking at it from the sky down, right? We have one tower, we have a second tower. And what we do is we take our carrier wave that we're sending to that site, and we'll send it to the main tower just like it is coming out of the transmitter. And then we send the signal through what we call a phaser. phasor, right? And what this does is it adjusts the phase of the signal that's going to the second tower. And really all we're doing is we're playing with time, with phase. So we slow it up so that it comes out at a different time, right? So that it's just out of phase with the main carrier. That way when those waves are leaving this tower, right, and they'll go out in concentric rings, it'll start leaving this tower together and they'll mix, right? So say we adjust our phasing and all of our signal will go this way because this tower over here cancels out the energy coming from this tower in this direction, and then they add together and make a bigger signal in that direction. So if you had a two-tower array, right, or let's just go a single tower array, and we're just broadcasting from a single tower, we broadcast in a circle, right? It's a circular pattern. It goes out from the transmitter in all directions, or the transmitting antenna in all directions, I should say. Every way you can think of, right? But when we phase our towers, what will happen is this guy will cancel out some of the signal from this guy down here so that it won't want to go that direction, right? It's out of phase just enough to cancel it out in a direction, and we can mathematically figure it out. I can look up the formulas and figure out how to phase my sight so that instead of a circle, we might get some big elliptical pattern like this, where this is what's called our 60 dB contour, right? This is our signal fallout from the broadcast station. So with phasing, we can steer the signal and we can increase it in one direction or another. And if we get more towers, we can get even more precise as to, what directions our pattern goes so that we can cover somebody and make sure we protect this guy over here that's broadcasting in the same frequency. And this might be separated by 500 miles or, maybe 1,000 miles because AM travels so far. But two stations, same frequency, same carrier, we have to protect them, and so we have to do a lot of steering. So now we get down to the last part of this video that I wanted to discuss, and that was the one that, please, if you're listening to this, if you stuck around this long and your ears are probably bleeding by now, I'm sorry. But this one's really important, and I want you to get this to whoever you can. If they're a doctor, if they're one of these MIT guys that all they do, Caltech, you name it, get it to them, because I want to know why they haven't figured this out. If me, an uneducated buffoon like me, can think of this, why have they not thought of this? Okay. So we are going to talk about something really scary. Cancer. Not as in, oh gosh, went blank on me. Sorry, it's early in the morning, 6 a.m. Not an astrological sign. We're talking about a disease, right? And how I bring RF into this, I'll get into that in just a second. So when you go to the doctor and they want to check you out, a lot of times they have what's called an MRI, right? Magnetic resonance imaging device. So what they do is they hit us with basically like RF. It's a magnetic wave. It's an EM wave, electromagnetic wave, and they basically flood your body with frequencies, right? And each part of your body, depending on what it's made out of, is going to resonate at a different frequency. Everything has its own resonant frequency, right? So if I can take something and find its resonant frequency and hit it with that RF frequency, the same frequency. So if I send RF into something and say its size is just perfect for this wave to bounce back and forth, right? It'll add to each other and keep increasing its amplitude, right? If I just keep sending the same wave into it and it's the same size to where it bounces back and forth and back and forth and it's there, it produces what we call a standing wave that adds to itself every time. And those standing waves, those are the things that kill my transmission lines, kill my antennas, kill my transmitters. I don't like them because I've seen it vaporize an 1/8-inch thick piece of copper. Just vaporize it for 16 inches. It's the craziest thing in the world you'll ever see. But if I know I can vaporize copper with a standing wave of RF, and I can take a picture of your body using magnetic resonance, right? Why is it that I can pick out every little cell in your body that's made out of one particular thing? That's how they can image, basically do a cross section of your entire body, is they know what everything lights up as far as frequency goes. If they send a frequency into it, into your body at, say, 1,000,000 hertz, right? 1 megahertz, and your bones resonate with it, they will produce that frequency amplified back, and that's what the imager catches. It basically picks up the standing waves inside all of the molecules of your body. So, getting on with it, if I know the resonant frequency, which I would, my MRI machine knows what frequencies it's running on, right? And when it lights up something like, say, a tumor cell, right, I will know the resonant frequency, and I don't know how in the hell you would notate that, but I'm going to go FRES, right? So we know the resonant frequency of that tumor cell. And we can even go down to, how about we figure out what the RNA or DNA of that one cell type, right? Because it's obviously different than every other cell in your body. How about I find the resonant frequency of that DNA strand? Right? So if I have the resonant frequency of the DNA, I can flood your body with RF, with radio frequencies at that specific resonant frequency, and only destroy the double helix of your DNA. Right? That one strand of DNA, I know exactly what that frequency is, and I can pick it apart and hit it with a wave that will basically cause it to die. Now, the beautiful part is, say I have a flat bed here with, okay, we're going to do stick figures, Jimmy here, right? He's laying on this bed, and we've got this magnetic imager around him. And say I take 1, 2, 3, 4 different antennas, all on the same frequency, and I connect them all together, right? But I phase each one differently. I send a different phase angle to each one. I can get this thing to line up and cause a standing wave in one spot in free space. So say Jimmy's got a brain tumor, an inoperable one. I should be able to send these waves in from my antennas and have them all converge right here and produce a standing wave in this spot in space. I would think, but that's just a theory. So I'm thinking we could probably cure cancer with something like that. I would love to see that happen. It'll take a lot brighter people than me because, well, I'll come up with the ideas. You guys do the legwork, and I'll help you figure it all out. But so hopefully Jimmy can live, and we can maybe help the rest of the world by getting this out there and seeing if somebody can figure it out. Because wow, it makes perfect sense to me. I don't know why we're not doing it. Please make this work. I've had too many people around me die from cancer, and I don't want to see it happen again. So, yeah, let's go with that. I'll check back in with you some other time, and hopefully we get some stuff moving. So you guys have a great day. I know it is going to be beautiful here in Iowa, nice and chilly. And yeah, let's go with that. Have a good night, guys. Or good morning, good day, whatever. I'll talk to you later.